In the wilderness, one of the temptations that Yeshua faced was this one. If you're really the Son of God, prove it. Jump off the pinnacle, right? It was a questioning aimed at undermining his identity. The Father said you're his son, but that declaration isn't enough. Prove it to me, show me, make a spectacle. Do it with grandeur. Let's see the angels catch you. Are you really who the Father says you are? It's actually similar to the way that he tempted Eve in the garden, who had already been created in the likeness of God. But he said, if you eat of the tree, you'll be like God. Well, she was already like God. He's trying to sow doubt and lack of trust in the Lord, in her concerning what God has declared about her to be true. Luke 4:13 says this, that when the devil had finished every temptation, he left Yeshua until an opportune time. Right? The enemy wasn't done tempting. He was waiting for the right moment. He would again, in different ways, just repackage the same temptations and try again. So immediately following the wilderness, Yeshua returned home and he was in his home synagogue. He unrolls the scroll to Isaiah 61 and he declares, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He's anointed me to preach the good news to the afflicted, healing to the hurting, freedom for the captive, and sight to the blind. And Yeshua said, today this is happening. And the passage in Luke says that everybody was speaking well of him. They're marveling at his gracious words, the things coming out of his mouth. And they were saying, isn't this the son of Joseph? Mark 6, they say, isn't this the carpenter, the son of Miriam, the brother of Jacob and Joseph and Judah and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with him? Right? The whispers had begun. Isn't this just the carpenter? Isn't this the builder, the craftsman? It's a question asked with a view to diminish him, to reduce him. Isn't this just Joseph's son? The brother of Jacob, Joseph, Judah, Simon. Nothing special here. But Yeshua knows who he is. He is the anointed one of whom Isaiah spoke. He knows it. But here in his home synagogue, right, a place of familiarity. I mean, maybe you're not on high alert like you are in the wilderness here. This is a place that should be a safe spot. This becomes that opportune moment for the enemy to attack his identity again. When you and I begin to step out in obedience to the significance of God's call, one of the first things the enemy will do is to begin to whisper doubts, to suggest to you and to me that we're too small, we're too insignificant for such an endeavor. The enemy will attack the validity of your calling based on what he says about your identity. Everything the adversary does is intended to reduce to rubble the image of God's purpose in you. And because Satan is a master deceiver, he doesn't attack with ridiculous claims. The questions asked aren't rooted in total fabrication. The questions asked may sound perfectly legitimate, but the spirit behind them is intended to sow doubt in you, to diminish you. He comes with partial truths. Because the answer would be, for Yeshua, yes, I'm a carpenter, but the whole truth is I'm not just a carpenter. And yeah, Joseph's my father, but there's more, right? And yes, that's my mom and my brothers and my sisters, but the question is, what does that have to do with this? The Spirit of the Lord is upon me to set the captives free. Right? The enemy came at him with a tactic that's been successful from the beginning of human history. Bring an argument that resembles something a little bit logical. Right? He comes with whispers that sound logical. Oh, did God really say that you'll surely die if you eat of it? Right? He'll find an area that is a potentially logical point of weakness and he'll begin to wear at it. And the attacks become exhausting, telling you that you're just Joseph's son. You're just Miriam's kid. You're just a child born into a family with a bad reputation. You're just a builder. Who do you think you are? And for us, the enemy will come with recurring memories of past failures and disappointments, guilt that you can't seem to shake free of, condemnation that lurks in the corners of your mind, hanging over you, with the intent purpose of causing you to go, forget it. You're right. What was I thinking? No. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. Today, this has been fulfilled in your presence, right? Yeshua wasn't just Joseph's son or Miriam's son or the brother of. He was the anointed one, the Messiah. And no whispers had the power to change that. And the whispers of the enemy don't have the power to change what God says about who you are, about what God has for you, about what God is calling you to do. Do you know who you are? I once was the afflicted, the hurting, the blind, and the captive. But now I am what he says I am, an oak of righteousness, a rebuilder of ancient ruins, a repairer of the breach, restorer of streets for dwelling. Walk in what he says you are,